Hello and welcome to the WIHS Journal, Public Affairs from 104.9 FM. I'm Paul Kretschmer. My guest on today's broadcast is author Amy Rienow with her book, Not So Perfect Mom. Does she mean to insinuate that some of us have a mistaken impression about our mothers?
I think so, but I think there are very few moms today that at least feel like they are perfect. I would agree with you that moms do have a lot of what I call expert information, and they certainly are experts on their own kids. And I actually talk about that in my book. But the pressure that a lot of moms feel today to have everything all together, it's a two-sided pressure. One is to be the perfect mom, but it's also a lot of pressure to raise perfect kids as well. And even though we don't really say that consciously, I mean, that sounds sort of ridiculous, in reality, that's often what a lot of moms are feeling.
How often do the children of moms, or dads for that matter, feel like they've somehow disappointed their parent by not coming out at the other end, doing the vocational work their mom expected, or maybe even doing the thing that their mom encouraged them to do? I know in my own case, my mother thought I was going to be the great American writer. Well, I write, but it's news rather than novels.
Yes, I think that is a scenario that gets played out, I think, in many homes, and that's probably been going on for quite some time, in my opinion. That's nothing new, I think, to our generation, per se. But I do think that kids often have a sense. I tell a story in my book that, I really, as a Generation X, being raised in the Generation X era, we were, as women, were kind of the first female generation to be kind of told that you can do anything, that you're not going to be limited. At least that was the message I got through a lot of my education. And in many ways, it was like being a mom was just supposed to be thrown into, like, career was more important and mom was just going to be the easy part,
Yeah.
Well, I was very broad-sided that that was not my experience. I found the nurturing part of motherhood easy, just all the logistics of learning how to be a mom and take care of a home and raise, what I was really striving to do, raise godly kids in a culture that just seemed to be going 180 the opposite direction. I found it very overwhelming. And I think, went through a phase in my early parenting of trying so hard to implement a lot of great things for my kids. But I had an interesting experience one night as I was putting my daughter to bed when she was about 6 years old. I'd always ask my kids, do you know that I love you? And they would say yes. But I asked Lissy that night, do you know that I'm proud of you? And she said no. And that's when I realized that I had put on so much weight of expectation on her that she was already at such a young age feeling that she wasn't living up to the standards that I was putting on her.
Boy, and she's not the only person that felt that way in their relationship with their parents, I'm sure. Suddenly, homeschooling's a little more common. We've been now here in Connecticut, we've had a homeschooling movement for a long, long time. But because people are home, if they're considered by the authorities or by their employer in conjunction with the authorities to be non-essential and find themselves at home, and the kids are at home and the schools are not open, do you find yourself that, in your own opinion, that homeschooling creates another expectation that may or may not be easy or at least manageable? Yes. That people have expectations that you may feel a little overwhelmed at trying to fulfill?
Right. Well, I would be surprised if there are, I think overwhelming is the word that we would use. If there's not a parent who isn't overwhelmed right now with these circumstances, it's one thing to plan to be a homeschool parent. It's another thing to have that thrusted upon you suddenly. I think these are overwhelming circumstances that we're in right now. And I want to encourage parents that homeschooling, really, if you are trying to imitate the classroom at home, that's not going to happen, and you have to kind of get that classroom feeling out of your head and realize that you have an opportunity right now to work on your relationship with your child. You have an opportunity to see, kind of peer into things that are going on in your life, and your kids have an opportunity to peer into your life as well as a parent. We live in a very segregated culture, and so often, our children's world doesn't intersect with our world, and we become very used to it. And what I discovered about homeschooling is that it's actually quite a little bit of a crucible, meaning that when you're homeschooling, you're bringing up on a regular basis character issues both in your kids and in you that you need to address. And it's a blessing that you get to see them. It's a blessing that you get to address them because it's not that they're not there. They've always been there. It's just that if you're in these segregated worlds, you're not going to be interacting with those problems, right?
Right.
So I want to encourage parents that you don't have to feel that frightened that if there's a lot more conflict in your home, or frightened that things are not going smoothly, because actually it's a time to really work out some of those differences. And conflict is actually not a bad thing. It's a way to get to a closer relationship.
What you described there sounds a lot like a couple I know who used to live up here in Connecticut, but due to the financial circumstances of life, decided they would rather live in a lower cost expense state, and so they moved down to one of the Carolinas, I forget which. The husband's an attorney. The wife worked at hobby type shops, no names please, and also at a restaurant chain. She had a now and again job working like that while they tried to raise 3 children here in Connecticut. Recently, they moved down to the Carolinas, and she's at home, and every posting that she posts on Facebook looks like a smile as broad as it can be, and the children I see in the pictures with her seem very, very content as well. It's not that she doesn't get burned out or worn out from day to day because of the responsibility, but she seems so much happier and so much more joyful at bearing that responsibility than when they were scrambling just to keep their heads above water here in Connecticut. And the lifestyle that they've chosen for themselves in a different place in the country seems to have worked a lot better for them in meeting some of the goals that you were just describing.
Yeah. I think that in my book, Not So Perfect Mom, I really have a chapter that talks about, what are excellent relationships. And I think we can have this kind of misguided idea that excellent relationships are always warm, supportive, wonderful, warm-feeling relationships. But in reality, excellent relationships are only produced by going through difficult times together. I tell my kids, there's no such thing as a close relationship that doesn't have conflict. The closer you get to whatever person, there's going to be conflict. And we've sadly gotten into a culture in many ways, I feel, that just really thinks that things are supposed to be conflict-free. And
not in my life.
Yeah, and they're not. That is the way. Again, I'd like to encourage parents now that not to be surprised if there's a lot of conflict in your home, but to go through it and realize it's okay to lose a day. It's okay to lose 2 days. It's okay to lose a week where you're not getting much things done academically if you are actually working through some things to build a closer relationship. Because in the long run, that relationship is much more important for the general well-being of your children, that will sustain them much longer than making sure they're getting through all of their math now.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about not attempting to duplicate the experience that they would have in the classroom. And I've heard of some parents who, in fact, have an objective for what material they'll cover over a period of time, but they're not rigid about when it's going to happen on a given day, or whether it's in the morning or the afternoon or whatever the case may be. And in some cases, it actually gives them an opportunity to interact with each other much more when they're on a field trip, let's say, such as it's possible at a time like this, and learning something that's not at the kitchen table or at the dining room table or whatever the case may be. Exactly.
And parents really need to embrace that freedom right now, even though we're in a place where we have to stay in our homes. I went today out to the track, and it was a sunny day today, and so I was able to social distance, walk on the track, and there was a neighbor, and I was talking to her about her homeschool experience right now. And she was just saying that, she just realized one child gets up and is able to get through their list of schooling right away, and they're very, diligent on getting that list done. While the other one, she has twin boys, the other one kind of dallies and doesn't get the list done. And they all wanted to go to the track at noon, and she had to make a choice. Okay, am I going to make the other one stay back here now with their dad? Or are we all going to go together? And she's like, she just realized, we're all going to go together. He's got the rest of the afternoon. Like, instead of, instituting like a punishment on that child, instead of that, accepting the differences right now. And as long as that child's getting that work done, have a goal, get it done by dinner. But you can allow some freedom. You can allow for different personality styles. You can have a lot more freedom in this time. And again, if you're trying to replicate a classroom schedule, that will get any homeschool parent uptight and upset. And if mama ain't happy, nobody's happy, right? So,
right. That's what I've heard.
Right. So that there's a lot of truth, because mothers are the heart of the home. And so their emotions have a huge impact on how the emotional well-being in the home is right now. So I want to encourage all the moms out there, don't feel guilty to take things at a pace that makes you comfortable, that makes you happy, do the things that you enjoy, because the more you're enjoying things, the more your children will enjoy things.
I understand that you've approached the point of what some people call delegation parenting. If I heard a phrase like that, I would think, that sounds like a situation where parents send their children to school and let the teachers teach them, and it's the parent who sends the child to Sunday school so the parents don't have to be very diligent or focused on raising their children up to be godly people. Right.
And now it's interesting because all that delegation parenting has come to a screeching halt in our culture.
It sure has.
Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
And so it's very interesting that now we're in the situation where if we were drawn to that, we really can't do that anymore. So what the advantages we have right now, like I said, there's just certain things that you cannot as a parent delegate. When you're trying to train your children in faith and character, an hour at Sunday school is not enough, right? I mean, faith and character is a 24/7 job, right? And that's why it's so important as parents that we are the ones that have our eye on what's really going on in our kids' hearts, really listening to what's going on, really seeing the character issues that they're dealing with. One thing I did learn as a homeschooling mom for all these years is how important character first is in a child's education. It's very easy for us to get consumed with how well our kids are doing on their academics. But in reality, it's the character underneath all of that that makes so much more important, again, for their lifelong success. So really, what's interesting is that the job of teaching character only can really be done by the parent, because who we are at home is who we really are. And now we're all living in these homes together, and we're all experiencing who we really are, right? And where everyone has the opportunity to grow in character.
Yeah, warts and all. The closer the picture becomes to your eye, the more you see all the pores on the person's face, and so on and so on.
Right. And handling that, that's a twofold thing to handle. As parents, first of all, our character flaws are also becoming more revealed to our kids.
Yeah.
So we need to remember that and understand that modeling, saying you're sorry when you lose your temper, accepting the fact, you're telling your kids, okay, I'm sorry, Mommy's late today, I should have been on top of this, and I apologize that, I didn't get this together, but Mommy's working on it. Well, that just only helps your kids feel a sense of freedom that they don't have to have it all together right now when you're open and honest with that.
Thank you very much, Amy, for being with me today. My guest once again has been Amy Rienow, author of the book Not So Perfect Mom. For further information, call us at 860-346-1049. The opinions expressed are those of the participants, not necessarily those of the staff or management of the station. I'm Paul Kretschmer on the WIHS Journal, Public Affairs from WIHS, Middletown.